I want to thank everyone that is here tonight for popping in. I definitely want to thank our guests tonight, John and Rob. I know I dropped the bios in all of the forums that we have where we posted this, and I will let them describe and provide background to themselves as they see fit. But I do want to thank you guys. Um, I think as a small business owner as well, I am very much interested into things that happen through Vet to CEO, and obviously we're friends. So for everybody that is in here from Elite Meat, I do know John and Rob personally. We are located in the same area in Wilmington, and just understand we've been expecting storms all afternoon, and they haven't come. So Murphy's Law states that probably right in the middle of this, we'll get all of it, and we'll probably all be disconnected. But we'll keep our fingers crossed that we do not. But without further ado, yes, I'm going to pay attention to the participant window and let people come in as they enter, and I'll turn it over to both of you gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. And glad to be here, guys. Pleasure and an honor to be here. Let me just share my screen here. So I'm John, and I'm here with Rob. I'll let you figure out who the brains of the operation is as we keep going forward. And we don't have a lot to present with you tonight. I'm going to open it up with some things we've learned at VETtoCEO, tell you a bit about VETtoCEO, but I don't want to bore you to tears with a long, boring presentation on entrepreneurship. Our style is typically to be much more interactive and answer questions and stuff, but I'm just want to give you a few tidbits to wrap your head around that might spark some conversation. So I'm assuming you read my bio, but I'm an Army veteran, spent 6 years on active duty, mostly in the 82nd, and junior officer, went after college, ROTC guy, and then got out and started my disastrous career in business, and here I am today. But Rob, you want to introduce yourself and say a few words before we get rolling?
Yeah, you got my bio as well, but Rob Campbell, Army guy, 27 years infantry, been light infantry my whole career, paratrooper, ranger, those kind of things. Retired in 2016, and I'll share a bit about my journey here in a little bit.
Thanks. So what I have is I got a few points we want to make that I use to really dispel some myths about entrepreneurship. We don't even like the word. We like to say small business ownership versus entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship means different things to different people. And it's been my personal experience as I became an entrepreneur a long time ago. And now my involvement with VETtoCEO, working with a whole bunch of people smarter than I have been, plus the veterans I've worked with, that there's just a lot of misunderstandings and stuff that we think entrepreneurship is that it isn't, and stuff we're afraid of that we shouldn't be afraid of for the wrong reasons, and stuff we're not afraid of that we should be afraid of that we're unaware of. So I'm just going to open it up and then turn it over to Rob with a few fun facts for you based on what we've experienced at VETtoCEO. So a little bit about VETtoCEO. We have a 6-week entrepreneurship program. It's online. We don't use Zoom. We use a platform called On24. So we like to say it's a very intensely interactive online experience. We really take a lot of pride with the experience, and you can ask past participants about it, and they'll let you know that we put a lot of effort into that, and hopefully it's engaging. We've done over 40 cohorts, over 4,000 participants since we founded in 2013. We've done private groups for colleges. We did a private group for the CARE Coalition down in Tampa a few years ago, and we just keep improving the program. Our next class starts on April 13th, and you can sign up on our website. It's free, and we would love for you guys, a lot of you guys, to do that. 40% of the people that take the program, by the way, are actively in business, and that's because they get in business and they figure out pretty quickly that there's some things they should have known that they don't know. So that's why they sign up. But it's a very rich environment with people that are both in business and just kicking the tires. But with that, let me just talk about 5 things we never hear. And Gar, with your permission, I'd like to just welcome anybody with a question to use the chat feature, and then that way we can capture questions and then address them. So there's 5 things we never hear from our participants, or when we're talking about entrepreneurship around veterans, right? And or entrepreneurs in general, even if they're not veterans. So I'm going to count that down for you. The first one is, I can't believe our business plan works so perfectly. We never hear this, right? And the reason is that the number one reason small businesses fail, if you look at any statistic or survey out there, is there's a lack of a market. We all think we got a great idea. One of the myths is that the only way to become an entrepreneur is to do a startup. I'll get to that later. So we think we have to have some idea. We're thinking about these ideas, and then we go crazy because we think it's a great idea. We take a lot of shortcuts. We launch a business around that idea, and then you end up with a train wreck like this. And it's because we didn't really have an idea. We had something that we're passionate about, but nobody else agreed with us, at least enough to make it a business. There's a name for that, and the name is called a hobby. You know, you have a really cool hobby, and if you love doing that, good for you. If you love to crochet blankets with, you know, your unit patch on them, and you think there's a market for that, go for it. But it's probably a hobby, and you'll be giving a lot out at reunions. But it's not a business, and we don't mean to be demeaning in that. But the VETtoCEO program, we actually start with market and talk about, surveying the market, and it's much like intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance if you think about it, and making sure there's a market there. So number 4 is, we're going to have to give some of this money back since we raised so much of it. So money scares the crap out of us, and we never hear this because we never have enough money. The number 2 reason why businesses fail is they run out of cash. And running out of cash can happen whether you suck at it or you're killing it. Businesses burn cash for different reasons. You have to understand what burns cash and why you need different kinds of cash, like working capital and startup capital. So the number 2 reason is something else we focus on that I'll get to more in a minute as well, but it shouldn't be the reason that you stay away from entrepreneurship. Money to veterans is one of those things that we're afraid of and we don't understand, because when we served, there wasn't anything we can do about money unless you get deployed or you did something dangerous. You got a little bit more in your earnings statement, right? You got danger pay or whatever. But other than that, nobody talked about money per se. When we take the uniform off, that shoots to the top of the list. And when we think about starting a business, that money thing scares the crap out of us. Folks, one of the big reasons why VETtoCEO exists is to dispel a lot of myths about money and how hard it is to get money for businesses and where to go find it. So, but that is the number 2 reason. And again, we never hear that people raise too much money. What we always hear is they don't have enough money or can't find the money. The third one is, number 3 is, our bankers and investors are true partners. And I like to bring some illustrations to life and let you watch this for a minute. Mike Tyson had over 44 knockouts. And this fight right here was against Marvis Frazier in 1986, back when Rob was born or something. And this fight right here is resembles what it's like to go toe-to-toe with people that manage money for a living and are investors. They're Mike Tyson and we're Marvis Frazier. And you just saw the entire fight as I was commenting on that. And that's what happens in real life, but that should not scare you. Finance is one of those things that as you get out of the military, you can either dive down into and study and get to know, just like you got to know whatever job you did in the military that made you elite. And that took a lot of commitment, right? Well, the same kind of commitment is true for small business. And one area you might want to focus on is finance. But the other thing to do is to get some trusted advisors that know what they're doing around finance, so you don't end up like Marvis Frazier there when you're trying to get money or negotiate with investors. Or more commonly, if you're able to get a bank loan or money from investors, when things don't go according to plan, that's when they start looking like Mike Tyson to you. So again, that shouldn't scare you. There are ways around that, and just so you know that, and don't be scared by it. The second one is, number two is, I'm going to start my own business instead of finding a job. It's less risky. Actually, it's the opposite, right, that we think about. We think about leaving the military. What shoots up to the top of the list? Man, I got to get a job and a paycheck because I'm losing the one that I've been used to from Uncle Sam. And that becomes our primary focus. You know, it's a matter of survival. I got to have a check. I get it. I've been down that road myself personally, right? And we think it's risky to be an entrepreneur. But I will tell you, this picture is near and dear to my heart. More than one parachute is always better, right? So if one of these parachutes fails, there's three more there that'll keep that thing from crashing into the ground, hopefully, right? But think about having one boss, okay? So you go work for a company, you work for a single company, and they probably force you to not have any side jobs, a lot of them, especially if you're at a higher level. Folks, as you get older and time goes on, and you get used to that job, you know, you're really at risk, in my opinion, by having one boss. If you use that same time to build a business, you might have 10, 20, 30 customers. And if one customer goes and tells you to pound sand, you still got, you know, 9 more that are paying your paycheck. So you have to ask yourself from a risk perspective, in the long run, which one's riskier? I will tell you, in 2008, when the world crashed, I started my business in 2003. Sure, we took a big hit. I had to cut expenses, lay people off. But guess who never missed a paycheck? Me. It was my business. And I had a family. And you know, I was glad that I was an entrepreneur then. Many of my friends lost their job. So again, not to scare you, but just turn a myth into something positive about entrepreneurship. Sometimes it seems risky to be an entrepreneur, but I would tell you, just from this one perspective, it's a huge advantage as well. And the last one is, being an entrepreneur is a no-brainer since I was a badass in the military, right? We actually don't hear this very often either. And the reason is, all of us have one thing in common, no matter what branch you were in. When we serve in the military, and the more who you were, and the more high speed you were, the more this is true. We don't do anything in the military alone, do we? So if we're on the ground doing a mission, we love seeing this big AC-130 in the sky, right? Especially at night. We love knowing that that thing's up there when we're going down a dark alley, when we're trying to do something very, very dangerous, and the pucker factor of 9 has taken over. But we know we have layers and layers of buddies and competent people covering our 6 and being up there in case things go bad. Entrepreneurship, folks, you have none of that. It's a very lonely world, so it scares us as entrepreneurs, but it shouldn't. When you learn about the resources that are there and everything else, you can dispel that fear that we have of taking that leap into entrepreneurship. And one of the biggest reasons, when you think about it, is we got to do it alone. And there's many, many remedies for that, but that shouldn't scare you. My point tonight is not to scare you. I've committed many years of my life for no money, not that anybody owes me anything, because I'm passionate about this crap, if you can't tell. And I've walked down the trail of entrepreneurship, and I try to help fellow veterans with the topic because I actually want you guys to consider it, because it is a good path to take. And I've taken it, and I can tell you firsthand that it's a good path, and I know many people that have. So why should you consider it? Last slide. Rob, get ready. So there's several reasons why you should think about this stuff, right? Number one, our VETtoCEO program is focused on the realities we just went through. It's tailored for veterans. It's only for veterans. There's only veterans in the group. We have guest speakers, over 100 guest speakers, that are 98% of them are veterans, and either entrepreneurs themselves or are experts in their area, like lawyers, CPAs, et cetera, that are part of our program. And we're there to be that team for you, that AC-130 in the sky, for when you go down the path of entrepreneurship. And we're focused on the realities, the no bullshit, not color-coded realities, some of which I've given you a taste of. And we talk about those things so that you feel more comfortable with them. And our program is designed around all that. Second, there are 3 paths to small business ownership. All the crap you see on TV and all these events you go to, I won't mention many names, but I go to them myself. Everything's about startup, right? Everything's about startup, startup, startup. But there's two other paths to small business ownership. One of them is franchising. Veterans and franchising are a great combination, and veterans are very successful at franchising, and franchisors love veterans. Franchising gets a bad rap sometimes. Forget about that. That's a path you should check out, particularly if you're a 20-year retired guy with some level of income and health benefits. Franchising is a great path to take. The third one, almost never discussed, is buying an existing business. Google Veterans Business Project. They're a partner of ours, founded by two Vietnam vet Marines. There's a whole inventory of businesses out there owned by veterans mostly that want to retire and want to transition their business to another younger veteran to become an entrepreneur. And sometimes you can do that without any of your own money. And we've done that. We teach you how to do that in the VETtoCEO program. So startup isn't the only route to being an entrepreneur. Certainly, we don't poo-poo it, but we also give equal time to the other two paths, and you should too. Three is you've got a ready network of trusted advisors. If you think about all the programs that are out there, the Honor Foundation, VETtoCEO, you name them. There's a gazillion of them today. Bunker Labs, they're all great, right? But what that's done is created this infrastructure of trusted advisors that we all have when we take the uniform off, VETtoCEO being one of them. All of these organizations give you lesser and lesser reasons to be intimidated by taking the path of entrepreneurship. Number four is, like I said before, this is one big one for me personally because I lived through it. I'd rather have 10 customers than one boss. So if you think about risk and taking care of your family, developing wealth, and really, as I'm sure I'm going to steal a little bit of Rob's thunder here, enjoying the freedom you fought for, why would you want to serve your country, put your ass on the line, and then go work for some asshole and hate life, right? If you own your own thing and you build your own team, which we love to do, right? And it's not easy, but when you get there, you're free, man. You know, entrepreneurship and small business ownership is about freedom. And if you're willing to put your ass on the line and fight for it, you might as well enjoy it. And the last one is our biggest teaser in our program is to use your own money last. Everybody and their brother is going to say, bootstrap it and go for grants and all that crap. Forget that. That's crap. And the reason that's crap is back to that Mike Tyson fight. Every business eventually needs outside money, even if you're successful. 99% of businesses do. At that point, when you need money versus want money, that's when you lose control of businesses. That's when you go broke because you don't have any other option. Because what did you do? You spent all your money up front. So what we tell people is don't do that. Keep your money and find out ways to get third-party money to come in. And it's out there, particularly from people that want to support you as a veteran. You get that money in to fund your business, and then you start your business and you save your money for when those emergencies happen and you don't want to lose control. So I'm just going to leave you with these teasers. I've thrown a lot at you. I'm doing this on purpose to frazzle you guys with some thoughts and to kind of entice you to explore entrepreneurship a little bit further. And one way to do that is to join our program and hang out with us for 6 weeks and give yourself a chance to kick the tires. And, if you go through 6 weeks and you say, screw that, I'm not going down that path, that's fine too. But, you owe it to yourself to evaluate that path as a path to take after you take the uniform off. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the star of the show. I'm the opening act, but over to you, Rob.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Star of the show. I'm not sure about that, but I'll give it my best shot. Yeah, it's a great program. VETtoCEO, I go through it every time as the executive director, and I wish I'd had that before I started my startup, which is friggin' hard work for all that John talked about. Our next course starts on the 13th of April. You see the website there. Check it out. It is free to veterans and worth your time. It's run by guys, John and Mike specifically, that had decades of business experience and are not just veterans that got out a few years ago and dipped their toe in entrepreneurship. These guys have screwed up everything there is to screw up and learn from it. And that is tremendously valuable. I've learned a ton. I'm going to hit on a couple things here. I want to amplify a few points that John made, and then talk a bit about transition, because I think it's an important topic that's completely related to entrepreneurship. Many of you are on the cusp of transition, or you're out now. I've been out almost 5 years, and I'm still very much transitioning. You know, the military, the Department of Defense writ large, asks the wrong question when we transition. John, thanks for your service. You did 8 years, or you did 28. What do you want to do next? The real question is, who are you? And some of you have done a little bit of this introspection in your transition. I will tell you, you need a lot of it, even more now than ever, because the military was easy. They told you what your MOS was, and they told you what to do. Move out. You know, no thought required at all. But now you have a blank sheet of paper, and it's really important that you understand why you were placed on this earth and what really motivates you and what's going to get you out of bed in the morning and allow you to go to sleep at night fulfilled. Once you answer that, you can take a smarter path. It doesn't mean don't go get a job. It doesn't mean a lot of things, but don't take your eye off of that and try and fulfill that. Mine is to make a difference in the lives of others through optimistic leadership. That was something I developed in a program before I took command of a brigade. And it stuck with me. And I knew when I transitioned out, I needed to carry that forward with me. I was fortunate in that respect, because so many veterans let the system, you know, guide them into places like startup, like go get a job just to get a job because it's a paycheck, and things like that. I'm going to talk about more of that in a minute. Entrepreneurship. I wrote an article called "Why Veterans Are Terrified of Entrepreneurship." Sounds very oxymoronic. In fact, I wrote chapter 13, I think, in this book right here, At Ease, Enjoying the Freedom You Fought For, addresses entrepreneurship. And I'll share the article with Garrett so he can get it out to the team here. But I want to hit on a few things of why veterans are afraid of entrepreneurship. It's a terrifying thing. You wouldn't think that, because we go into harm's way. We serve in the heart of darkness, you know, in the most dangerous places. We give a blank check to our country, payable with our lives. Yet when it comes to owning your own business, many of us shy away. Well, John talked earlier about the isolation. Many of you, special operators, could reach out left and right and touch your buddies. You were emboldened to do what you did because you had this massive network of support behind you. Modern equipment, protection, all of those things. It emboldened you to take bold, risky steps. And now that you transition into, now that you transitioned out, you're alone. A banker's not going to come for you at 2 a.m. An investor doesn't care if you can't make payroll, right? There's nobody there. It does speak to kind of building a team and having a network around you. And that's what you get when you come through VETtoCEO. Entrepreneurship is a foreign language to us. We don't even use the word in the military. It's hard to spell the damn thing anyway. Thank God for spell check. But we don't talk the language of business. You know, we're all about task and purpose, time on target, mission command, you know, things like that. In business, like cap raise, you know, runway, pro forma, all the different things that come with business are foreign language. So it's akin to being placed in a foreign country without an interpreter and having to find your way. And it's a frightening thing. Third one is we don't get money. We just don't understand money. Listen, we've been operating off a blank check since 9/11, especially you guys in the special operations community. All right. I mean, as a brigade commander, I never looked at a dollar sign on any operation slide or mission plan I ever looked at, not once. Never. It just wasn't a thing. But in business, that's first and foremost. I say often in my leadership practice, businesses solve problems through money. The military solves problems through leadership. My brigade was never going out of business. Consider this, right? On the Osama bin Laden raid, if one of the advisors to the president turned to him and said, "Mr. President, we could save $250,000 if we shaved off one helicopter from this mission and 3 Navy SEALs." That's ludicrous, right? You wouldn't think of that, but that's the first slide in a business. Can we afford it? How much money do we need to raise? Will it bring in revenue? It's all about the dollar sign. That's the lifeblood of your business. And that's why it's such a foreign space to entrepreneurs. quickly about my journey. When I retired in 2016, not a clue what I wanted to do. Had a good sense of who I was and what my core purpose was, but not really sure where to apply that. Kind of stumbled into book writing, wrote my first book, spring of 17, and decided, wow, I could sell that, book on leadership. I could consult, coach, teach, you name it. So I took what is called the gateway drug. And that is that I got a tax ID number, I got a website, I got some business cards. Yeah, that was it. So I'm in business, right? No, I just have an idea. I didn't have a single customer. Like John said, I had a hobby. I loved doing it, right? But it wasn't paying the bills. I didn't get my first paying customer until January of 2018. Mind you, I started this business in spring of 17. It took that long to find my first customer because I didn't know what I was doing. And I thought startup was the way. I often say, if I were to go back to that moment, I don't live with a lot of regrets. I would have very likely have explored franchise. I would have explored buying an existing business because while it's not easy, it's possible. And it's possible for anybody. And I have learned that through my time at VETtoCEO. So I've had a handful of good years. I got a pension, keeps the lights on. I'm working on my debt. My wife and I are flexible. We've got, a 2-bedroom apartment here, and we can pick up and adjust course as we need to. So kind of set conditions to allow me to do what I do. I'm a professional speaker, but as many of you know, the last year has just not been conducive to doing that. But it'll pick up again. So I'm going to stay on course. While doing that, I'm also looking at other business opportunities. There's 2 that I'm looking at right now, and franchise, which VETtoCEO really opened my eyes to. I am happy to connect with any of you on, running a business from a guy that's just a knuckle dragger that has learned along the way. I now have a business operating system. I've hired 2 military spouses that are 1099 employees. So I'm not beholden to them through a W-2 relationship. All those things that I've learned that I've put into place are things I probably should have done a long time ago. All right, break. Let me switch over to transition because it informs this journey that you're taking for sure. Transition is trauma, all right? That's a heavy word. We associate that with, a horrific firefight or a loss of a loved one or a buddy on the battlefield. Traumatic events, right? But transition is trauma. It's because you all have become accustomed to and comfortable with the environments that you serve. The neurons in your brain are like well-worn streams. And you can walk around in uniform or whatever you wear on base with the teams and not think much about what you say and do. You're accustomed to that completely. While in transition now, you're thrust into this brand new environment called society, of which none of them know what you do. And so now your brain is having to work harder to adjust to the new norms, to bottle up some of that language that you used to use that you can't use on the outside. It's traumatic. That's a traumatic event. And so you need to be aware of that and have yourself, a partner or a buddy to turn to as you travel the journey. This is hard stuff. You don't fix transition in a week or in a course. It's a journey. Like I said, I'm almost 5 years from the time I retired and still very, very much transitioning. It's traumatic. So, build yourself a team, be aware of that. It might hit you 3 months into it, might hit you 3 years into it. Odd times things will come up and hit you. So build a team, work on some relationships, stay connected to the tribe. Next piece of advice is to stay flexible. I wrote an article about, be careful not to drop anchor. You drop an anchor, you're stuck. You can't move, right? And so what happens a lot of transitioning vets is they get out, they get that job. Maybe that you add that to the pension. Now you're doing pretty well. So you buy the house, the boat, the car. What you find out is, wait a minute, this ain't the community that I want to be in. It's not the church that I want to belong to. It's not the job that I love doing. Wouldn't it be nice to course correct relatively easily from something like that? Right. But if you're anchored down like I did, I bought a home on Topsail Island and I was stuck. I couldn't move from that. We discovered we didn't like the neighborhood. So we sold it. We did okay and got out of it. And I'm thankful that we did. But stay flexible. You're going to go through changes that I can't describe to you. Nobody can. And I'm not sure when they'll happen. But it would be nice to be able to course correct. Stay flexible. Work on your finances and your debt. Downsize your stuff if you need to, but be flexible so you can adjust. Stay connected to the tribe. I think that's very important. When I transitioned out, I kind of turned my back and wanted to kind of close that out for a little bit and divorce myself from the military, but I found that I needed to return to it. And that's one of the benefits of being a part of the CEO team. It's like being back on the team and the squad every Friday, cutting up and throwing each other under the bus. It's a blast. And it's just very healing and fulfilling to me to kind of be back in that community. So I advise you to stay connected. You got a lot of people in this course and in this program that you can. Last point, I'd love to take some questions. John and I would really love to entertain some questions. Is in entrepreneurship and in transition, we have to, as veterans, reconnect with non-veterans, with the civilians now that we live in their world, right? If all we do is form these little camps of just veterans that are just veterans and by themselves and isolated and never civilians shall come in, we're not going to do anything about the chasm that exists between society and veterans who serve. And of course, like the military always gets called in to fix things, we ought to take that on as veterans and reach out. I was working on a business venture recently, and I knew enough by that point, because I'd been to the VETtoCEO course a few times, to reach out to a non-veteran to partner with, because he brought business experience and a deep network, all the things that I didn't have. I brought the leadership and the vision and the mission and getting it all kind of, task organized and worked out. We didn't go forward with it, but my point to you is find those non-veterans out there and team up with them. They occupy the space already that you're about to step into. I'm a leadership coach and speaker. I go into businesses and help them. I get to look under the hood and see what's happening in private businesses. And I've learned more from people that are decades younger than me in this new space, because I've opened up and listened and learned and gained. People that never served have no earthly idea what I ever did, but have taught me so much. So you've got to do that. You've got to reach out. I'd be happy to connect with any of you on LinkedIn. I talk to veterans every week, all the time, 2 or 3 a week, and talk to you about networking and LinkedIn and all the other things that, I experience. And then one more selfish plug for the book. I think this would really help you. This filled the gap that I felt when I transitioned. There was nothing to reference, like someone else's story or their perspectives on the transition. So it's called At Ease. It's up on Amazon, and you can find it through my website right there on the slide. All right, I am rounds complete. Let's take some questions. Thanks again, Garrett, for having us.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a pretty quick one. That's okay. Yeah. So yeah, just John and Rob, thank you guys so much for your service and for your time. My name is Winston, prior EOD in Navy and Army, believe it or not. This is a question for Rob, but for John, I definitely understand what you said. My first job out of the Navy was, well, pretty much it was like a healthcare startup. And I was getting bullied by this MBA guy. He was the business development rep, and he was just like, "Hey man, I know you just got out of that military, but you're drowning here. I really don't give a F." So I definitely do understand what you meant when you went through that. So I've kind of given up on the entrepreneur route. I tried, my friends and I tried this startup where we were trying to help, the California the California wildfires, and we wanted to build drones that shot water at them or a chemical, but it cost us too much and it just fizzled out. We all have wives and stuff, so it was a little bit too much. But sorry, so just for Rob, I'm kind of going into like fictional book writing. There's this one book I'm working on right now, and it's kind of tough working on it every single day. But I just want to ask you a question about how you found the right editor, the right agent, the right publishing company, and that's my only question.
Yeah, great. Let me hit on something first before I go to that. And what you talked about with your startup experience, you're not alone. I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of people that did exactly what you did. But don't give up on that dream, right? Now, if that was something you were truly passionate about, then dude, chase it. Here's an example. A good friend of mine and one of the advisors for VETtoCEO, Chase Roth, Marine Raider, transitioned out after 13 years, long before he had any retirement. He just saw a future of constant deployment, had a kid and a family, so made the decision, made the transition. He runs a carpet cleaning and sanitation company right now in Wilmington. He's not passionate about that. He's not passionate. He didn't leave the Raiders to go clean carpets, but that business is a vehicle for him to fund some future dream, like what you tried to do there. So maybe the path for you is absolutely go get a job, pay the bills, start banking some money, work your debt down, but start building this plan. Come through the VETtoCEO course and start putting it together. Find a civilian partner out there, start structuring this thing. Or do like Chase did, get into franchise and be the, the captain of your own ship, and let that be the revenue engine behind that idea that you had, so that when it's expensive, yeah, I've got the money. So I offer that to you because you're not alone. You should be disappointed. You were brave just to run down that road to begin with, because so many of your peers do not. On the writing end, I met my publisher through another Army dude that wrote a book ahead of me, and I just reached out to him. And let me back up. I didn't have intentions to write a book. I didn't enjoy writing, but I met this real estate guy at this conference I was at, and he wrote a book in 100 days. And that pissed me off. I'm like, hey man, I've been surrounded by terrorists, so I wrote mine in 90. And it's just about getting it done, just getting down and getting it on paper. Don't worry about the publisher. Don't worry about the cover. Don't worry about the, Library of Congress. Don't worry about any of that. Just get yourself a rough product done, even if you've got spell checks and grammar issues in there. That's what publishers do, is they take you to that place. So I learned over time, because I had this publisher and a writer coach, that to let go of some of these things and just get the raw product down there, because that's what really counts. So I was introduced first to a writer coach, and she kind of helped me take the book to the finish line, get a review board to look at it, give me some feedback before I walked into a publisher. And then she handed me off to my publisher, Kate, and I'm happy to introduce you. She'd love to talk to you. She loves veterans, and she's fantastic. I've done 2 books with her, and I'm working on the 3rd among others. Met Kate, and I gave her a Word document manuscript of this thing, and she went and did the editing, typeset, cover, ISBN number. She got it up on Amazon for me. Now it ain't cheap. Not cheap at all. And you're not going to put a kid through college on book sales. You're just not. Now, the book for me, the first one anyway, was a big business card. The second one kind of serves a calling of mine and helps me help others. But yeah, you could self-publish. It's just going to be hard to get the book out there and sold, versus having someone help you get there. I'm spoiled, right? I'm an Army colonel. I used to have a staff, and the Army didn't let me keep that when I retired. So I had to go find them, and that's what Kate was in the publishing company. Is she got all that stuff done, and I'm glad I did, because it's a really professional product. I'm proud of it, and it's it shines instead of me in a side of an MRE box trying to put something together. So hope that helps, and I'd be happy to connect with you, at some time one-on-one and talk more about it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, sir.
All right, let's get some hard balls in here.
Hey guys,
I want to see John Sweat
here. I got a question about, you say one of the avenues to business ownership is for people that are looking to stop running the business themselves and looking for somebody else to come in. And I think essentially just, hey, I'll pay you out of the profits over the next few years to pay you back to your company. How do you find those guys? I mean, I've been hearing about that for decades, and it's not an easy search to find who's willing to let go of the reins of their company or even start that discussion.
Good question. I'm going to look for I'm not checking my stocks. I'm actually finding a link for you. There's 2 kinds of companies out there that are looking to be bought. I'm going to drop one site in the chat right now. There's another one called Biz Buy Sell. So if you go to BizQuest, there's businesses that are looking to be bought. So websites, just like anything else today, you can find a business to buy on some of these sites. just like buying a house, you know, somebody wants to sell their house, there's a broker involved typically, and the broker puts them on these sites and then they try to sell the business. So that's one type of business. The better business to find is the business that's not raised their hand yet and gone on this site yet. And it's the business, and there's a ton of them out there. I'd encourage you to Google Veterans Business Project. I can hook you up with those guys. Again, 2 former Marines, Vietnam vet Marines, founded that, still run it. And they match veterans coming out of the military with veterans that want to get, you know, transition their business, as I said earlier. As a small business owner, I can tell you, if you walked into any business, if you went to 10 businesses tomorrow as an experiment and you walked in the front door and said, hey, is the owner here? Yeah. You ever think about selling? I bet you 8 out of 10 of them would say, hey, come on over here, have a coffee. What's your interest level? And it's not that they want to unload the business because it sucks. It's just that they've never thought about what's called an exit strategy, and they want to retire, but it's just too easy to just go to work the next day and keep running the business, right? And they haven't hired a broker yet. So that's what you want to find. And lastly, a lot of businesses become available because of divorces. People die, you know, of illness and stuff, and the kids don't want it. So these businesses become available. And the co-founder of VETtoCEO actually bought his business in Ohio that way through a divorce. His brother happened to work there, and they were going to close it down. He went in there, and without any of his own money, bought that business, and now it's doing over $10 million a year as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. So we can help you with that. It's the best way to get into business, if you ask me. And it's out there, and they're actually easier to find than you might think.
Let me add something there, John. One of the statistics, I'm not sure you know about that, I didn't know, I only learned about 1.5 years ago, I think, was that and I may be off a tad, but not by much, 70% of veteran business owners out there right now are 73 years old and above. And many of them don't have a transition plan, or like John said, someone they hand it to. That represents a massive transfer of wealth and business. And who better to hand it to than a veteran walking in the door? The other thing I will say is, if you're going to go down that road, reach out to John personally. I almost bought an HVAC company. I backed out for a variety of reasons, but John was instrumental in educating me on that and looking at things that I couldn't read, like Greek. And it was very helpful. That's kind of what he does in his day job. So don't go that alone. Some brokers can be good, some can be just real vultures, could give a crap. But John's the real deal. And you know, if you're a vet and you're going to walk into a business, you ought to have a conversation with him. So good question.
Let me do a mulligan there. The last thing I'll say is, what the best thing about buying an existing business is, it doesn't mean you have to keep that business the way it is. What you do is you buy a relevant business. So say I was talking to a guy the other day, he wanted to stand up one of those tactical training sites, you know, because of his experience in the military, and train law enforcement and stuff like that. So, you know, the idea, and he wants to move to Montana, and he's here he's at Camp Lejeune right now. I said, look for some relevant business. Look for a campground or a gun shop or whatever the hell it is out there in Montana that's available for sale, that you can keep running as a farm or a gun shop or whatever, and pay your bills, pay the owner back, and then transition it to what you want it to be, right? That's what Mike did, my co-founder, did with his manufacturing plant in Ohio. And, you know, there's a lot of advantages to that. So find a relevant business in an area you want to be in, and then work a deal out, and then transition it to what you want it to be over time.
John, have you seen that model done under a holding company structure through multiple businesses?
Can you repeat that?
I was just asking if you've seen that done through a holding company structure, where, you know, a veteran might put a bunch of businesses under, you know, a holding company, and then transition them to be maybe defense focused or VA focused.
Yeah, I mean, that's one tactic to scale a business. You know, if you have several businesses that are related or unrelated, that's a structure you could use. on a related note, you know, you're all veterans, so you have a veteran-owned small business, but very few of us are familiar with the advantages of government contracting, particularly as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. So one of those holding companies could be a service-disabled veteran-owned small business focused on government sales, and another company under that structure could be focused on non-government, you know, commercial sales. So we've seen that as well, where you've got different markets that you're serving, but leveraging your veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned status. Good question.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great answers.
What other questions do you have?
You can ask about transition or anything, really. John and I have screwed up everything, I promise.
I have a question, actually. Since Elite Meet is a network-centric organization and we encourage all of our members to go out there and build their professional networks, if someone is planning on starting their own business or, you know, taking the entrepreneurship route, what types of folks should they be targeting when they're building their network?
John, you want to hit that first, and then I'm going to talk networking in more general terms.
I love that question, Megan. I'm going to give you an analogy for, well, let me cut to the chase. Look for other veterans who are entrepreneurs, have run businesses or start a business. Don't waste your time. That should be your top priority. And there's a gazillion of us out there, trust me. And we're all willing, able, and eager to help other veterans. Trust me, it's not hard to build that network, Megan. And the analogy I want to use is this: when all of us went into whatever branch we served in, right? Who's the first dude we met, right? It was some drill instructor or some NCO that had been in the service a hell of a lot longer than we were, right? And they scared the crap out of us, but we respected them because they had done what they're trying to teach us to do, right? And then when we went through our units, there was some other old crusty NCO. Many of you are that crusty NCO now. And you know, the FNGs would show up and, you know, they were taken under the wing, and the NCO taught them the ropes, right? Forget whatever you learned in school. Here's how we do it here. Well, entrepreneurship's the same way. Everything you learn in a college class or whatever is bullshit. Talk to people that have run businesses. They're much like NCOs that have been around the block a few times. That's the analogy I'm using, Megan. And that's the best kind of people to network with. Not college professors or lawyers or accountants that never ran businesses. You want to find other entrepreneurs who've made every mistake in the book and have learned from it. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but you touched a nerve.
Thank you. No, it's great. Thank you very much. That's probably why there's so many organizations out there that are veteran focused, you know, trying to get that group together.
That's right.
And obviously your organization as well.
Yeah. Let me hit on networking generically, Megan, because it's a great question, and it's one thing we don't do very well as we transition out. I didn't know how to do it. I was taught how to network, and when I talk to veterans, I'm almost always telling them, giving them these tips on networking. And you need to network whether you're looking for work or you're going to be an entrepreneur, because it's all about the network. Everything is going to come through a network. I still, to the day, talk to probably 3 brand new people a week that I've never met before, and talk about what they're doing, compare notes, see if they know anybody, give them an eye, you know, talk about my ideas and what I'm thinking. But it goes back to, and LinkedIn's a great place for this. Have a presence on LinkedIn, and what you can do, like, let's say you're interested in a certain industry or entrepreneurship, you can find those kind of people doing some searches on LinkedIn, and then make the connection in the blind. Just, if they look like they had a decent profile, if they're a veteran, then you've already have something in common. Reach out, make the connection. If they accept, follow up with a message and say, hey, Rob Campbell, I'm transitioning out, just beginning my journey. I'd love to learn more about your journey and what you do. Even if it's a non-veteran, what you need to connect with a whole bunch of non-veterans too, to balance that out. And I do that a lot, mostly non-veterans that I network with. That's not true. There's a balance between the two. But I want to learn about what, and you know, some won't accept, some just won't respond, some aren't very active on LinkedIn. But when they do, and you get on a call or a Zoom session with them, make it all about them. Hey, John, tell me what it was like in your growth up the ladder and up the chain in your organization. How do you exceed standards, and how did you excel in your field? What's your day like? You know, what leadership challenges do you have there? What do you like or dislike about your company and your industry? All about them, and learn, take notes and all that stuff. And then, you know, at the end, you can say, all right, you know, you've seen my resume, or you've got some sense, of maybe you've seen my profile. Where would you place me in your industry? Where would you put a guy or a gal like me? And let them answer that. And then at the very end, see if they can connect you with another person or two, and keep building your network out that way. But make it all about them. Don't talk about how many jumps you got, or, you know, what you fired, your weapon. It's just none of that. They just don't care. I mean, they don't know. So make it about them and learn, and do a lot of that, and keep building out your network. It's going to be, I could trace all of my successes back to a network, sometimes 4 or 5 people deep, till I got to that point. So you got to do it. And as you know, the pandemic gets behind us, go get into those networking events. Chamber of Commerce, Bunker Labs does a lot of good networking events. Organizations like that, where you can get together and talk to military and civilians. So great question. It is all about the network.
Thank you.
I
We
have a
like
quick
to hear
question.
that at Elite Meet, because we're all about the network too. So thanks.
I have a quick question.
Shoot.
So I was looking into a couple of franchise opportunities. Of course, with everything, it's a learning journey for me, specifically what you guys covered as far as the financial piece of that. So if I get to choose the franchise that I would like to go about, how much liquid capital would I need to maintain or cover the franchise until I start breaking even? Like how long?
Well, good question. I mean, you have to spend money in a few different categories when you buy a franchise, and they map to the same categories you have to spend even if you did a startup. And that is, the first one is the franchise fee. So first of all, I would pick a franchise that's a member of VETFran. Have you heard of VETFran?
No.
Yeah, so VETFran is a program that franchisors sign up for. And basically what it is, it's a discount off the franchise fee because you're a veteran. So I would only look at companies that are members of signed up for the VETFran program. So you got the franchise fee, number one. Number two, by the way, I'm in the middle of potentially buying a franchise too, Shirley. So I'm doing the same thing. So
Awesome.
the second thing is you got to come up with financing, right? So most franchisors are going to want to see proof of some level of liquid capital in order for them to approve you as a franchisee. Sometimes that's difficult for many people, right? Depending on the franchise. But nonetheless, you got to show you have that capital. So if you can get by that gate, and then you got to finance it. So typically it involves an SBA loan or something. The SBA actually likes lending to franchises because it's a proven business model. It's not a startup. But let's just say you're going to get the loan. You typically have to put 10 to 20% of the loan amount down, right? So if you got to get $150,000 or $300,000 loan, depending on the franchise, you know, you got to have 10 to 20% of that amount available in addition to the franchise fee. And then the third category is one of the points I made was you run out of cash, and that's the second reason businesses fail. You have to have some what's called working capital, a cushion of cash that you have available to keep the business fueled. So those are really the three categories to think about, and I can help you offline with that stuff. That answer your question?
Thank you very much. I will communicate.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will communicate.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we've got one of the advisory board members for VETtoCEO is Gilbert Segwid. He's out on the West Coast, and He does just that. He puts veterans into franchise opportunities. So, and I know he'd be happy to talk to you and kind of educate you a bit on.
Yeah,
that
we could
path.
hook you up with him. Yeah, he's
Yep.
an expert in that area, Navy vet, and he's actually helping me with my franchise goal, and doesn't cost you anything either. He makes money from the franchisor if you end up buying that franchise.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump in here. I'm gonna go back to your programs, guys, because I know you're not going to tout the things that you provide, but I'm interested, obviously, for myself in the entrepreneurship training program, and I see the next dates that are coming up. Unfortunately, I have another program that's conflicting, which stinks for me. But my question for you is there a cap on participation? And then I have a follow-up question to that, which is the reason why I'm asking it.
No, there's no cap because we're online. We usually have around 200 to 250 people sign up for each cohort around the world. Some people are even deployed, and we love that. In terms of your conflict, most people have a conflict. We do the live session from 7 to 9 at night Eastern time because people have day jobs, number one. But number two, around 40% of our participants participate by watching the recordings. The only thing you miss by watching the recordings is the interactive chat sessions with each other, the instructors, and the guest speaker. But that's the only thing you miss. You still get all the resources, all the support, and all the content if you signed up and you just went through it by watching the recording. So I'd encourage anybody who might have a conflict to sign up anyway and watch the recordings on demand.
We've had a couple of repeat offenders too,
Yeah, that's
that
good
have
to
come
know.
in, take the course a few times.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah. So I'll probably be one of those myself. It's a good thing I know you guys. So my follow-up question is, just looking at the modules, the reason I ask is it common for people that aren't necessarily interested in small business ownership, but are interested in, becoming, say they're looking at startups and they're interested in coming out and they think finding a position in a startup is the route for them. Is it common for people to attend the program just to get some business savvy?
Great question. Number one, that's always a great idea to go work in a company that you think you want to start. I mean, it took me 10 years to work for 3 companies before I started mine. And it was based on that experience that gave me the confidence to know enough business stuff to start mine. So that's always a good strategy. But I will tell you this, yes, take the program. Even if you're not sure, you're ready to be an entrepreneur or not. And the analogy I like to use is, like I just bought a new Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? And you ever buy a new car and you're driving down the street, what do you start noticing? Every other Jeep Grand Cherokee that goes by, right? Whatever car you have, right? Just fill in the blank. By taking a course like ours, you're ready. You're ready. So when, it might be a year from now, something might fall into your lap that you recognize as a business opportunity that you can take advantage of, right? You might run into somebody who's getting divorced that has this business that's now available, right, for a steal. You're ready at that point, right? So that's one reason to take it, even if you don't have an idea, even if you don't know it's the right path for you. But if you're an overachiever, which you probably are if you're in this group, why not challenge yourself intellectually, jump into the pool, take the program so you're ready if something happens in the future and you recognize it just like you recognize those cars going by. So that's kind of my answer.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it definitely answers the question. Does anybody else have any questions?
I actually started my business that way real quick. I was working for a software company and I was hired to A, run sales, but B, sell the company. I ended up selling it to an offshore company. And because it was offshore, we had a $3 million federal government contract that the federal government would not transfer to the offshore company. And I recognized that was my chance. So I was able to negotiate with the board to take that contract and start a company with it. I handpicked 4 people and finished that contract. That's how I started the company. So, you know, that, and I was ready at that point, right? So that happens a lot. That happened with the co-founder of VETtoCEO. I actually fired his ass, literally. And he was looking for a job, and that's when he heard from his brother that this thing was up for sale, and he bought it, you know? So it happens a lot, and I'd encourage you all to get ready. Anything else?
Good information. Yeah, does anybody have any other questions?
Best first hire. What was the best first hire?
Say again?
What was the best first hire that helps you move the needle in your business?
I hired, that core group of people I hired were, none of them were veterans. And I'll get to that. They were all people I had worked with that had proven themselves to me. And I'd suggested all of us have those people around us, right? We have trusted people that we respect for what they can do. So those are really typically the first good hires. I also must say, I want to get back to something Rob said in response to your question. I have always felt bad that I didn't have a single veteran that I hired in 18 years. Well, I can't say that. Mike was a veteran, my co-founder, and I fired his ass. And I hired another guy in the UK that was a British veteran. But I didn't have a company full of veterans, and I always felt bad about that till I started listening to crap that Rob spews. And I don't think I would have been successful if I had surrounded myself with veterans. No insult intended. I needed those civilian counterparts to be successful. And they appreciated my sick war stories that I would tell them after 5 beers on a road trip. You know, went over their heads, but they respected my leadership. They respected my decision-making ability, and I respected the crap out of their business acumen. And those two things together is what we can all do to build a team that is successful in business. And, you know, I would suggest to you that when you think about hires, you think about hire civilians that can offset your weaknesses as a military guy and build a team that way.
Yeah, I agree. Let me toss in a few nuggets of my own. More to like my business isn't mature enough to kind of to tell you, okay, this hire made the big difference for me. I do have 2 military spouses that are 1099 contractors under me. One of them is in Spain. She's a Navy spouse with her husband, and the other one is right here in North Carolina up by Seymour Johnson. Her husband is in the Air Force. And the beauty is they get to stay at home. Like, you know, my business is completely mobile. One of them does administration because it's just not the stuff I want to do. She'll do the billing and she manages my books and things like that. The other one does book sales because I'm damn good at writing. I'm not very good at marketing them. And so she helps on that front. She's doing a lot on my social media space too, which you probably see a lot of because she's got me out on all the mediums. So that's helpful. One of the smarter decisions I made, and I only made it because of the pandemic really forced me to look inward and work on my business and not in it, was a business operating system. I was leaving money on the table. I mean, I had clients I had already served that were right under my nose that I just didn't do much with afterwards. And so I've got them all into a funnel now and a flow, and I can manage all that and get someone down to a phone call and a proposal, and off we go. So that's something I should have done a long time ago. It's a Zoho app that I use, and it's very comprehensive. Everything's in one place. Bulk emails go out through there, proposals go out through there, calendar events, everything. So all my social media goes through there. It's just one place and it blasts it all out. And it's good. And I've got people managing that for me. My goal as a business owner is just to wake up each day and focus on my craft. I love to write. I love to speak. I like to create the next speech. And I enjoy writing my books and I love coaching. you know, business leaders and veterans. So that's what I want to do. I don't want to be mired down by the other administration. So I hand that off to other people, trusted individuals, and go forward. But my risk is low because they're 1099 employees. I'm not beholden to their paycheck. If the funds dry up, the cash flow ain't working, and they know this already, I'll call and say, hey, got to pump the brakes and wait for the next client to show up. So a few things I learned.
Can I ask a question to so I was going to ask this question, and I'm glad you brought that up, Rob. So my question was and John, and you're familiar with what I do in my business as well, but my question was going to be is like, if you were going to suggest what a small business owner should outsource, like what would you suggest? And I just got a lot of that. So I'm tracking things that Rob mentioned as well, but just your opinion as well is like, what are some things that that you should probably outsource? I know in our last phone call with Bill Watkins, he mentioned getting an assistant because it ultimately there's a lot of white noise. So what are some things that can be outsourced and should be outsourced sort
Well, I'll take a first crack at that. I probably wouldn't have agreed with your last guest speaker. I never had an admin, and I was a guy that always jumped with my own radio and airborne operations. I didn't see the value of that personally, but admin's definitely one of those things I think you should outsource. I use this service called Call Rosie. I don't know if you heard of that. It's like $250 a month, and they answer the phone as if they work for you. So there are services like that you can outsource a lot of business functions to, like that as an example. There's 3 people you need on your team. I don't care what business you are, but those should be outsourced. Number 1 is a bookkeeper, accountant, CPA type, right? Somebody that you have that runs your books. Don't try to do that yourself. It's not a good use of time. Again, those are services that can be outsourced. You can hire firms to provide that cheaply as a service. We can help you do that, by the way, if you want. The second one is a lawyer. You don't need a lot of legal help. In the beginning, trust me, but you do need a lawyer. So find another veteran who's a lawyer and work a deal out. We have a network of them if you need one. And the third one is not talked about a lot, but you need to find a good commercial insurance agent. I'm sure, Garrett, you deal with this, right? If you go to sell something to a company, they're almost always going to require that you have liability insurance. And there's all kinds of commercial insurance that we don't even know is out there. I had insurance with my last company that if the internet went down, I would get paid the revenue that I missed because the internet went down, right? There's coverage for everything. And we're not used to that because we're used to buying homeowners and car insurance. So you need a good commercial insurance agent as well to give you the right insurance coverages to protect your business. So I would outsource that. Lastly, try before you buy. As Rob said, there's a difference between a 1099 employee and a W-2. If you are thinking about bringing someone on as a full-timer or team member, try before you buy. 1099 them first, and then say, look, if things work out, after 90 days, we'll convert you to a W-2. It's a lot easier to change your mind, as Rob described, with a 1099. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sure does. Thank you.
And Garrett,
Sure.
let me add to that. One of the things to think about, and this isn't necessarily specific to what exactly you need to farm out, but if you think of your day, first of all, your business, you're in the marketing business. Be clear on that from Jump Street, right? I don't care what you do, you're in the marketing business, because if you can't sell it, it's useless. It just sits on a shelf or it just sits in your head, and that's where it ends. So as you structure your day and your week and personal activities that you do, which of those activities is revenue generating and which of those activities is not? And this is where the admin stuff might be something you can hand off, because like in real estate, let's say, the more time that realtor is filling out paperwork, he or she is not out there finding their next home buyer to sell them a house, right? So if you use that analogy and apply that to what you do day in and day out, of going out chasing leads and doing things like that, that's the stuff that's going to bring in revenue for you. Those things that don't, see if you can hand those off.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It is 8:20. Do we have any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, guys, yeah, almost the full hour and a half. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. I hope that our members that are here see the value in just even connecting with you outside of this, as well as the VETtoCEO programs. Again, I know that there's several that are going to want the recording, and we'll make sure that they get that as well. If you guys have not listened, so specifically, if anybody's interested in funding, and this is for the recorded version as well, you know, John was on a podcast recently with another friend of ours, and actually Rob has been on it, and I've been on it as well. I suggest you listen to John and Rob. Not so much me, but John talked about how the funding strategy has changed via law, which is a fantastic, like, I mean, it's just, man, it really just helps you. It really helps explain like why funding is where it is and where you can seek funding these days. And if he in his email, I think that he put in the chat, he put his Full of Capital email, right? So he's also, and it's in his bio that I put in there, he's also a managing partner of a capital firm that helps veterans find funding with you know, within the local community. So these are things that you definitely need to take a listen to. And again, and Rob's on there as well. Definitely take a listen to Rob. It's they're both very encouraging conversations. And again, guys, I greatly appreciate it. You will see me again, obviously, and I will definitely take a part in the program. I'm interested in getting savvy on some things myself.
Cool.
And with
Thank
that,
you.
I guess we can call it a night.
Thanks for
All
having
right.
us.
Thanks, Garrett. Standing by to help.
Absolutely. You guys, again, greatly appreciated, and everybody have a good night, and we'll get this out to everyone. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Take care.
Later.
Cheers.